Hello, everyone. Welcome to my show. Autumn is here. I'm your host, Francine Crawford. And today we have Allyson Schrier, and she is the president and founder of Zinnia TV, and she's also a caregiver. So please welcome her to the show. Welcome, Allyson.
Hey, thank you so much, Francine. I love what you do.
Thank you so much for taking the time out to interview with us and tell us more about Zinnia. It's new to me, and I would like to know more information and just tell us a little bit about it first.
Yeah, sure. So I'll just kind of sort of lead into what brought me to it and then explain it. Does that work for you?
Sure, absolutely.
So my husband was like a lot of people in the dementia sphere, right? Like there's a personal connection. And in my case, my husband was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia when he was in his 40s. And I was already, and my kids were 12 and 15, and it took us years to get a diagnosis. So for a long time, I'd been trying to figure out like, what is this thing? What's going on? And we had narrowed down what we thought his diagnosis would be. I had narrowed it down. And the day that we went in to get the PET scan results and find out exactly like that he actually had FTD, I remember that I remember walking down the hallway in the neurologist's office and just looking at the walls and looking at the carpet and thinking like, okay, this is the day. From this point forward, nothing looks the same. Like everything is going to change. Will the walls still look the same color? Will the carpet still feel the same beneath my feet? It was just this very sort of sensory. Anyway, so everything did change that day. And for a number of years, he lived with us at home. But it was really, really hard having somebody with that particular form of dementia living at home with children. So he eventually did move into long-term care. And one of the things that was really difficult for me was to show up at long-term care to hang out with him and find him parked in front of television, watching things that were just wildly inappropriate for him and for the other. He'd be in a little semicircle of people in wheelchairs sitting in front of a TV. He's 49, and the other people are in their 70s, right? And so they might have Turner Broadcasting on playing like movies from the 40s, which for him is like, what? But also it would be something like the Weather Channel, or it might be something like Filipino soap operas. And so I just I thought, well, I can't believe that this is the best we can do. Like, seriously, nobody should be forced to sit in front of a television all day long. But if you're going to watch TV, shouldn't it be something that is meaningful to you in some way? Yes. And so anyway, I just started doing a bunch of research, trying to figure out like why is it that when I come in, he is either looking around the room, or the other people around him might be asleep, or he would be getting really upset and banging his chest and like, swearing. And I would think, well, gosh, put me in front of Judge Judy all day long, and I think I'm going to have a few choice words too. So anyway, doing some research, what I discovered is, okay. Because of the brain changes that are happening, he is no longer able to track a plot or tell fact from fiction or process rapidly moving audio and video, which doesn't seem rapid to us because our brains are working, but your processing speed is just hammered when you're living with dementia. And so I started then thinking about, well, like, what would better programming look like? And so really you just sort of tease it out, right? Oh, well, there wouldn't be a plot, and there wouldn't be the ability to confuse fact and fiction, and there wouldn't be rapidly moving audio and video. And so I used to create these little videos using my iPhone. Apple has something called their Memories product, and I would make these little videos, and I'd come in with my iPad and I'd show them to him, and they were way better than what he was watching, because the image is right there, so it can't be missed. Instead of dialogue, there's just music, and things are moving at a very gentle pace. And so I thought, well, okay, but how do I do that like at scale? How do I give something to the care community and say, here, play this? And also I'm stuck with like pictures of my dog and my cat, and the odd vacation, right? I want to show him videos of things that he really loved when he was a healthy guy, like skiing maybe, or biking or something. Yeah. And so my background is in technology. I reached out to friends of mine who worked at Apple, and I said, okay, you guys, put me in touch with somebody who had something to do with this Memories product that I'm using on my phone. And they put me in touch with this guy who had actually just left Apple, but he was one of the designers of that product. And so I told him how I was using it, and he was like, oh my gosh, like we never thought about that use case of supporting people with cognitive loss. So anyway, he became my business partner, and we started Zinnia, Zinnia TV. And so we added a few more people, an amazing filmmaker and visual artist, and everybody needs a business guy. So we put all those pieces together, and in for a couple of years during COVID, we just had videos available on our website for free. And in 2022, at the end of the year, we came out with an app that is works on mobile devices and connected TVs. And so what is it? So it is kind of like a streaming service. I mean, it is a streaming service, right? And on its face, people would be inclined to say that it's like dementia, Netflix for dementia. And it kind of is, because the videos are super engaging. They have music, they have sound effects, many, many layers. Though they seem very simple, there's a lot going on. There is no storyline, but there's a plot, but there's often a very subtle storyline. And they are only 6 to 12 minutes long generally, although we certainly do have longer videos. But they are on topics that all kinds of topics. So there's, for instance, an animals channel. And so there you can see a video that's just about elephants or just about bunnies or puppies or kittens. There's a places channel that has things like what you'd expect, Greece, right? Or Seattle or whatever. And there's an activities of daily living channel that specifically has videos that model behaviors that or experiences that we would hope to have with people living with dementia, like drinking water, using the toilet, getting dressed, where it's just a beautiful short little video that shows people doing the thing that I wish we were doing right now and shows them enjoying it and being successful at it. So it kind of drives interest in doing that thing. We have a faith channel. Our interest channel has videos about babies. It has videos about fly fishing, videos about baking, videos about sewing, just all different kinds of topics. So how does it work? I, as a care partner, would sit down with somebody and we would watch a video together, for instance. That's one use case. And we just completed a 2-year research project at the University of British Columbia in conjunction with Vancouver General Hospital. And their results bore out the same results that we saw when we did a 2-month pilot with Brookdale Senior Living. And it's the same results that we hear from our family subscribers, which are the things that Zinnia helps with. So that research project said Zinnia helps drive connection between the person giving and receiving care. So if I were watching like the gardening video with my dad, it would be this beautiful, very slow-paced imagery of somebody preparing the soil and somebody planting seeds and people weeding the garden. And so if my dad were still verbal and cognizant enough, it's an opportunity for him to be the expert in the room. Watching this video, he can narrate it. He can tell me what we see. Or if he's nonverbal, which is something that was the case with my husband pretty early on, I can narrate, because I can tell you when you visit a person who's nonverbal, you run out of things to talk about. And so these videos really drive conversations. The other, so connection with the person giving and receiving care. Another one is connections between people who live with dementia in long-term care together. So I go to memory care units and I sit in the back of the room and I play Zinnia and I watch as people who are watching together and they're having a conversation about what they're seeing. Like, I believe I've been to that waterfall, and the person next to her will say, well, I've been to that waterfall too. And I think to myself, no, neither to that waterfall, because it's like in the middle of Africa somewhere. However, awesome that you're having a conversation about it. So connection is a big piece. And with that, the engagement level with those videos, it also means that for me as a family caregiver, I could be like, hey, Dad, you know what? I'm going to let you watch this for a couple of minutes. I'm just going to go get the vegetables chopped up for dinner. So little tiny bits of respite. Another thing that we discovered, again, through all of these sources, through our pilot, as well as through our 2 years of research, as well as from family members, is that Zinnia reduces agitation, which makes sense because the visuals are so right there that if somebody is starting to really kind of get to a place where their anxiety is getting the better of them, if I could redirect them and say, hey, mom, what do you think of these babies? Are they not the most adorable? She's then completely pulled in and it distracts her and her anxiety goes down. So at the research project that we did up at UBC, they found that to be the case. And now that that project is over, they have asked to do a follow-on study, which we have said yes to, specifically looking at the reduction of antipsychotic medications with Zinnia as a first course of action when somebody is starting to get agitated, because that is something that we have seen in practice. And then the third thing that they spoke about in the most recently published paper was Zinnia's ability to help with reduction of anxiety around activities of daily living, which I just talked about. And so those are the main reasons why people use Zinnia. So we recently did a survey of all of our subscribers, and 75% of the caregivers who use Zinnia with their loved ones said that watching Zinnia reduces their own stress. And so it's not just because like people, they'll be like, I got it for my husband, but I'll tell you, you can find me any time of day sitting there watching bumblebees. But really what it's about, Francine, is that if my husband's or my mother's or my sister's anxiety is reduced because of the fact that we are making better personal connections, because of the fact that ADL, activities of daily living, don't seem so scary, because of the fact that there is a way to help them come out of a moment of anxiety, well, they're happier. Mm-hmm. And that makes me happier, right? Because as a caregiver, at the end of the day, like we are constantly second guessing ourselves and asking ourselves, am I doing the best that I can? And I think that Zinnia is just sort of one of the many tools that caregivers can have in their back pocket that allows them to say, like, yeah, I'm doing the best I can. I mean, I'm not parking him in front of Gunsmoke, unless he really likes Gunsmoke. Like, I don't have anything against Gunsmoke. But if somebody is wandering around and they're not really able to focus, Zinnia is just a really awesome tool.
Do you find that many institutions have picked up on this and use it for their institutions, whether it's a healthcare facility or organization? Do you find that?
It is a growing number. So we're kind of what I would call opportunistic in that space. Like 98% of people are being cared for at home. And so therefore, if we are marketing or anything like that, the people we're trying to reach are family caregivers, because that's also, that's frankly who I care about. That said, we do have long-term care communities that use Zinnia, and they use it in a number of ways. We have hospitals that use it, adult day care. It's really popular there. We have channels that are just activities, like name that dog or who is that famous actor? And so it creates this ability for people to share and engage together. And in long-term care settings, they use it two ways. One is that they will sometimes have like TVs, big screen TVs set up where either when they're bringing people in together for an activity, for instance, they might watch something together, or they might have a room where they have Zinnia running all the time. Mm-hmm. And when residents happen to pass by, it's a way for them to kind of pause. Staff can walk by, they can have little conversations together. Residents will stop and talk to each other. They will use those TVs in community settings to do something like, as people are starting to file in for breakfast, they'll have the Let's Eat Breakfast video playing. And what they find is that when people then get into the dining hall, there is less stress because they understand why they're there. We are here because it's time to eat breakfast. Okay. And what they also do in long-term care settings is they use Zinnia on tablets. So the staff will have like an iPad or something that has Zinnia on it, and they can then use that for one-on-one interventions.
Okay. So is it like an annual subscription to it?
It is an annual subscription. So it's an annual subscription of $6.99 a month or $69.99 a year for families. And in long-term care communities, it varies, but it's typically anywhere from about $45 a month to like $150 a month if it was a huge organization. So we have tried really intentionally to make it something that is affordable so that people can actually use it.
Okay. Do you have any ideas for your next steps with it? Is there anything else that you're working on, or
we are? Yeah. So we did just add a Spanish language channel, and that is because, well, part of the research project that we did and in British Columbia is they were testing Zinnia in a community of people who are Cantonese speakers. And
Mhm.
what they found is when they watch our Let's Drink Water video, which has people friendly messages from people who say now would be a great time to drink some water, and they like clink glasses of ice water together. For folks who lived in that community, they were like, ice water is not exactly what I drink. So instead, we had a woman who speaks, an elderly woman who is a Cantonese speaker, very face forward on the screen. And in Cantonese, she says, "It's so nice to see you here today." And then she has a cup of tea and she says,
Yeah.
"Please drink tea with me." And what they found is that in that community, everybody was like,
Tea time.
like tea time, you bet I'm in because this is something I know. And so,
Right.
in fact, of the 4 papers that were published as a result of this research, one of them was specifically about multiculturalism. And so, with our Spanish channel, what we want to move towards is something that is very culturally appropriate and where the language is recognizable. We have an education channel. So to like really briefly about me, I wound up doing a bunch of certifications. I taught in Washington State for 3 years in long-term care settings. I taught the classes that were mandated for anybody who works in long-term care. In Washington State, they need to take these very specific day-long classes in dementia and mental health. And so I taught those classes. I also worked for 3 years at the University of Washington with a group called the Memory and Brain Wellness Center, which is part of the School of Medicine. And my colleagues were neurologists and neuropsychologists. And my job there was that I managed an education program. So still in education, but this time the students were primary care providers. So doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners. And it was all about upping their game around dementia detection, diagnosis, and support um, to try and create local expertise for dementia support. Because, like, somebody who lives out in Eastern Washington shouldn't need to drive 4 hours to Seattle to get their care. But anyway, the reason I bring that up is because so I've been really studying this stuff for a long time and teaching about it. So we do have a caregiver education channel as well, which is lectures, I guess you'd call them, that are sort of abbreviated, but that talk about a very specific aspect of care. Well, how do you help somebody who's having hallucinations? Or what do you do when the person you're caring for like keeps repeating the same question over and over again? And so those classes have already been translated into Spanish so that we will provide education to Spanish speakers as well as a channel that is more appropriate for them to share with their loved ones. But our content is very intentionally low dialogue because we want it to be something like we have people. There was a doctor at a conference I ran into who was from Costa Rica, and she was like, "I use your product with my patients." And I was like, "In Costa Rica? Like, how did you even know about us?" And one of our earliest customers was somebody in Malaysia. And there's a woman in France who reached out recently because she has been using it with with a member of her family. So to answer your question about like where from here, well, we do see ourselves creating more of multicultural content and trying to spread our reach beyond North America. We also are very interested in looking at other types of neurodivergent populations. So if Zinnia is really helpful for somebody who is no longer able to track a plot, tell fact from fiction, and process rapidly moving audio and video, that's not just dementia.
Right.
That's a lot of other conditions. And so that is an area that we would like to move. It's very multi-generational. We hear from people who say, "This is awesome because my mom, who is 82 and has dementia, sits on the sofa with my kids who are 4 and 7, and they all watch together because the content is appealing to them both."
Wow. Awesome. That is great. That's great. I'm so excited to hear about this and so excited to get this out there because it's so helpful. I wish I would have had that when my mom had dementia. So I'm sure this is useful to everyone. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're still moving forward, doing other things to spread it, that other people can use it. So I really appreciate that. So
Yeah. Should I tell you how people can get it or learn
yes,
more?
yes,
Yeah,
please.
sure. So our website is www.zinniatv.com, Zinnia TV.com. So our product is named after the zinnia flower. I'm
Okay.
the gardener, and zinnias will grow even in the crappiest of soil. So that's what we're about, is like helping people thrive beyond their diagnosis.
Oh, okay.
And
Awesome.
anybody can reach out to me. I'm Allyson, Allyson, at zinniatv.com.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, so they can look at the website. There's a free trial. There's a 2-week free trial available from our website.
Okay.
Um, and we do find that about 80% of people who do the free trial subscribe. So I think that seeing is believing, and I encourage people to go check it out.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. This is great. This is great
Oh, you're so
information
welcome.
and so useful, so useful. And I appreciate you taking the time to explain it to my audience. And people are working on different things that will help dementia. We know that there's no cure for Alzheimer's and things like that. But while you're waiting for a cure, there are things that you can do now to help the quality of life of your loved ones and for you. And for you
Yes,
too. Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
So I appreciate you taking the time out. Thank you so much, Allyson.
You're so welcome.